Hello, everyone. My name is Carl Bond, and I have more things to talk about in this second video of graphics and computer art manipulation. So let me get to it. I'm, of course, going to talk about things that I was meant to elaborate on the first video, and one of which is that I was talking about uploading art to a website. So image, this image, this image, this image, this image, and onward to the other part of my website, which is this page, that the other images on my website here that I want to talk about are this image, this image, and the, all of these images are, of course, uh, were produced in some large part through Dreamscope, and um, I just I'm really happy even still, and doing this video today that I look at that it's like buying HD for $9.99 when I was doing my video from my first video of this. I basically opened up all these bookmarks, and I was like, oh wow, okay, uh, all these different kind of websites to talk about. And when I came to this, I was like shocked that they offer art for to be to buy in HD for $9.99. So um, the art computer manipulation graphics world, the is just kind of uh, taking off in some small or large way. So I want to be able to get into these a little bit later on. But first, maybe more of an elaboration of maybe stuff I didn't get to last in my last video, or at least explain. Uh, um, so sometimes if I talk about it a second time, that it makes things a little bit more clear. So this is an app that you can get for three different platforms, and iOS, Android, and Microsoft Windows Phone, that people can create art with. Um, this is another uh, somewhat cross-platform website for more apps. This uh, these apps right here I have used um, in playing around with uh, the image I was working on before. Not so much from this website, because this website, sometimes when you enter in an image, it might give you um, uh, an artistic art effect, like maybe this background is too uh, vibrant, too garish, and that's the same reason that some of these, I don't really like some of these images of, like maybe the backdrop of some of these images are um, and indeed, some of them are like interesting in there and whatnot, but um, it takes a little bit of a trial by error sometimes to figure out which artistic um, texture or manipulation that works for you. And so uh, uh, this these web or apps are relatively inexpensive. This one I believe is free, um, but this one mostly has apps for $2.99 and under, except for these two at the top, which is $39. And even that, I think that maybe $39 is somewhat easy for some people to come by. But when I was talking about Acvis, um, Acvis is on a program, of course, that is for Windows and Mac. It's cross-platform as much as this one is cross-platform, Mac and PC. Um, that I want to be able to offer the best that both platforms can afford uh, from within their own um, ecosystems, I guess you could say. I want to be able to show that uh, you don't necessarily need to have a Mac if you want to do artwork. You can use a PC as well. It's getting into the political debate of which computer platform is better than the other. I think is not really a helpful discussion to have. So that's why I have Studio Artist and Acvis artwork, but Studio Artist from synthetic software and artwork from Acvis um, software. Um, uh, uh, if they call themselves um, uh, Acvis company, that you basically um, can do whatever your imagination enables you to do. So, Deep Dream is rather accessible image manipulation um, uh, that people could go to, as I demonstrate from my website. This and the other images that I have already talked about are from Dreamscope. So Dreamscope has advantages and disadvantages, and I'm going to hopefully maybe illustrate a little bit later on that maybe if an image doesn't really work to one's satisfaction. I mentioned about this picture before that you can maybe do a little bit of a layering effect, and oh, this works in some benefit, but not in other benefit. Then you would, take the original image, which would be that one for the dog, and then this one, which would be more of the artwork that Vinci has been able to play around with or manipulate. Um, Take that sandwich that maybe 50%, for the top layer in GIMP. I'll illustrate that in later on in the video. But how to sandwich images, but it would be a process of taking it back to the website or back to a filter program in order to play around with the image so that you get the unique effect that you're looking for. I do want to touch on these last two tabs here, which is Super Photo, an app that I downloaded on the computer. There are many different platforms that you can see. You can even try it on the web, as Dreamscope but Superphoto is not as a polished website uh, from my perspective. Um, but for those that want to use Superphoto, um, they can in a variety of different formats, as well as this program called Paint, which Paint is an interesting, um, somewhat, I guess, less available um, uh, website. Certainly, when you compare it to Superphoto, which I said was available for the filters are available on the web. Paint doesn't seem to have its filter um, uh, the filters that it can do um, uh, for it to be available on the web. So there are advantages and disadvantages to a lot of these different tools and programs and applications, but I'm going to hopefully allow you to see what's the best of maybe both worlds and try to make um, help you make maybe a wedding canvas piece or some sort of other illustration for a homecoming present, a wedding present, an anniversary, you know, present, um, etc. Um, so I'm going to minimize that um, um, series of images now, and I'm going to go to um, talk again about acquiring images. People should always do maybe their own little bit of research, but I found what I'm going to illustrate with these tabs over here is that I basically found my own needs or own benefits or my own likings to acquiring images on the internet. And so, as it was in the first video that I did, I showed this website. So Pixabay, Pixels, Public Domain Archive, Unsplash, Stock Vault, Morguefile. I could go on, but from entering in, say, Morguefile or Unsplash into a Google search and say CC0. That's the new catchphrase. So let me do that right now. CC0 Unsplash. And then you could be able to be connected to websites that talk. Here's a Creative Commons music place that you could um, um, download music. Um, my tutorial here is not really about music, of course. It's more about images, but that it is all interesting that you are just like two terms. CC0 Unsplash that you get CC0 music. Um, uh, anyway, I'm going to close that tab right there. And I encourage people to just kind of explore and search as they find their way throughout the internet on what works for them. So here's Wikimedia Commons, which is a good place to get um, images that are public domain. Certainly, this reminds me of any government entities like NASA. Everything that they produce is public domain because it's everyone's tax dollars in use uh, for a public good. Um, so um, this this website called Foodies Feed is another place to get uh, a, hopefully for um, some people's interest um, uh, images of food or um, food appropriate images for like uh, uh, the walls of a cafe or whatever. Um, Pixels and Pixabay are the last two images. And again, like our websites for one to get images from. Pixels, of course, I was like um, taken by this hot air balloon. So of course, I'm going to demonstrate briefly how to get at this banner to get the images or the image behind this banner. So I hold down the control key and I click the mouse and I release click the mouse again at inspect and um, I click down on control again and edit as HTML over the item that I believe is the graphic. And of course, this kind of highlights to indicate that I am um, uh, um, uh, editing HTML over the graphic. And so let me um, pop that image right up there. And um, looking at images, uh, uh, I'm inquisitive about what the image comes from. If I'm want to manipulate it myself, so um, I of course searched for this beforehand, and this is all showing the hot air balloon, which is interesting. Um, that there's like 320 results, but not all of the 320 results are used or usable for um, uh, many some applications. I see that there's a lot of graphic design people that use the hot air balloon for their own purposes. So that's all helpful to realize that Tin I can do this. What I want to go to is or show you is oldest. So you can certainly get like the biggest image and et cetera, et cetera. But I saw this as a big image right there. And then I saw this as a really smaller image compared to this, which is like maybe 4 or 5 times as big as, or maybe even more than that. Um, this I I guess from my perspective that the top image is the oldest from in it's really interesting. I can't really explain it, but uh, apparently whoever manages this Tumblr was able to upload this picture on on a couple of days before a larger image was um, uh, able to be found on the internet. So maybe this person is the original photographer, and he wanted to scale down the image, and then have that image online. And but you could see that it was crawled on 2014, the month 8, which is uh, August, August 6th, and then on August 10th, the um, TinEye was able to find a larger image 4 days later, a larger image of this. So it just catalogs everything and has everything be in a hierarchy or whatever. And you could see that there's Unsplash right here. That the more that you search for images and explore with uh, wanting to get out there in terms of image manipulation, the more that you'll be able to say, oh yeah, Unsplash, okay, I've seen that before, etc., etc. Um, this is that balloon. Um, this is an image searching website just as much as TinEye, but this does on people's face. So whether or not something looks masculine or feminine or age, if you need to have a face that you want to have a face that looks um, uh, for some sort of appearance that um, uh, uploading in a face and would give you an idea of how masculine or feminine this image uh, reverse website, searching reverse website would show you what the computer thinks about how feminine or masculine or the age of the person in that picture. And this is another reverse image website. So all these resources are good to know. I do want to click on this one finally before we play around with the hot air balloon in GIMP. And I just was able to get um, the next web page just by pasting the URL, or you can certainly upload the image from your own computer's desktop. But once you do a web search, you can basically try to find all sizes or go backwards. Um, you can see that there are other examples of that same hot air balloon that's on my computer right now. So I guess I'm just going to um, uh, go into GIMP now. And GIMP was somewhat of a program that I didn't spend too much time in um, with my uh, uh, just continue to talk about stuff. So at this juncture of the website, I think it's good to maybe uh, find out if have people take a look at various settings, and so some of these settings take a long time, so that's why I didn't actually click OK. um, I probably should have scrolled here a little bit so that people can see a little bit more of the hot air balloon. And um, some of these filters are somewhat basic, or maybe one has probably seen something like this before, which kind of reminds me of a glass filter in Photoshop, and it's not really too um, um, significant of an image, but some of these other filters are. And this one, for example, this one in painting, it can take maybe an hour and a half to render an image. You have like 20 by 30 images at 200 dots per inch or whatever, or 150. You'll be able to see that there's a lot of streaking going on. That's kind of an eye-catching um, um, uh, effect to have on that image. Um, and watercolor um, has its own kind of effect to it, and I'm gonna take an effort to scroll down here so that anyone is watching this video can stop and play in terms of like um, the all the settings that I have um, uh, basically set out for myself. So I want to um, just scroll down and scroll up so that people get um, uh, can see the, those settings. This is a kind of like a pencil illustration, and so I guess it would be of everyone's interest if I just scroll over just a little bit more. And you could see that it's kind of has some pencil sketching going on in that um, preview window. And here's another preview of another illustration. I'm going to scroll down so everyone can see these kind of settings that I chosen for myself as favorite. All of these are favorites that I'm going through. And that didn't have anything to scroll through, so that's cool. Sometimes, as you would see, would have more than one of like watercolor or painting or poster edges, and so this watercolor is undo that airbrush. Here's another demonstration on watercolor. So I have various settings separated so that I don't accidentally select one over the other. But from this, you can kind of see uh, the settings that I chose. Um, and as you watch this preview window, that watercolor will this watercolor background effect will change. So um, of course, there is not a whole lot of change to this other than just like a black outline, but still people can certainly use that and have that as layering going on, and being able to have more color, like for example this one, which is really kind of um, oversaturated, um, that people may find an interest in layering one image over the other. And so that's one of the interesting things about this filter package, is that you could, excuse me, tell it to have create new layers, and have an output limit message as well. I'm not sure on some of the these various settings here, but what I do know is that creating a new layer is really helpful, because sometimes, as I showed with Dream Scape or Dreamscope, that website that I uploaded images um, uh, to be on my website. Uh, I guess I must have closed it, or no, I didn't. Um, the, uh, these pictures are due in large part to this website, and just as it's true in Dreamscope, that at that uh, website that I just showed you is this right here. Uh, Sometimes you have really exaggerated colors and strokes and whatnot, uh, that you would want to layer the image, and so that's why I've chosen watercolor as a favorite, even though it doesn't give a whole lot of color actually to a photograph, that I could at least use as its um, thick outline outlining um, in image as its own layer for me to play around with the opacity. So here's poster images, and I like poster images because it's able to uh, uh, defuzz um, an image when there's a lot of noise in it. Certainly, when there's a lot of noise in terms of like upscaling and downscaling, you find an image on the internet. It's really rough in terms of JPEG noise pixels around um, uh, things like a beach ball or whatever, and around um, the edges of this beach ball, you would see these grainy pixels. Uh, uh, if this beach ball is against a white environment, that uh, um, anyway, that's where a filter like this would come in, and I hope to use poster images um, a little bit later on in this demonstration. Um, these are just filters that I have chosen within GMix. So whenever I scroll down to like artistic or black and white or colors, and like for example artistic, I've got that selected. I can press the plus key, and that plus key will create um, right there, just like the long list of presets that I already have. I'm not actually wanting to keep that um, as a preview, uh, uh, a saved setting, even though I could go through the um, the layers and choose, like for example it to be like um, um, light and only or dark and only, or somehow inverse the image, if not from filters. I mean the layers. Sometimes I've been able to like somehow found a way to inverse that. You could also inverse invert images from like the color selection of um, uh, GIMP or whatever. Uh, I don't see it to be quite as artistic as what I want these filters to um, be. Uh, I have found these filters to be um, giving an exaggerated or posterized effect that maybe it would be too over the top. And if it is, I just bring it down to 50% or whatever. You can see with this filter, it uh, allows to create a nice, somewhat rough, artistic experience, and you could see that there is noise throughout, like this part of the picture, that it would be interesting to apply poster images to this picture. Um, um, I'll have to do that a little bit later on, um, but all of these um, uh, uh, filter settings are unique in their own way, and this one just kind of makes things all look kind of Van Gogh like, um, which is an interesting artistic um, uh, filter style to come by, and you can certainly exaggerate, these lines to sharpen them up. I'll demonstrate a little bit later on in this picture, in this video. Um, Going on to dream smoothing. Dream smoothing is a unique um, um, uh, filter. If as you can see, it really uh, um, makes things almost a little watercolor like. As we wait for the filter to re-render itself, you can see that it's kind of of windy, a little uh, has little bit of a watery texture to um, the the image or effect or something. So this is relief light, and um, uh, I don't know. Some of these effects, I would need to tone them down to 25% or even um, less than that, um, uh, uh, because some of the images are so vibrant or loud or whatever. Um, I'm sorry, I might have lost my place in terms of like um, uh, if I needed to scroll down at all in order to choose one filter set selection from another. So I'm basically gonna take the time, um, and hopefully I don't lose a whole lot of time from doing this. But um, anyway, uh, yeah, okay. Um, so uh, I'm sorry. Sometimes my mouse, bounces around a little bit. So I probably should rather keep my finger off the mouse a little bit. But here again, you can see that there's noise. Really interesting to you. Would try to attempt to use car paint on top of poster images. And scroll a little bit too far to the opposite direction. Anyway, that's dream smoothing, relief light. I don't know that you could see much of a difference from smooth uh, thin brush, but after the um, got a spinning ball, I'll continue. I guess you'll have to play around with the effects. Maybe it's more of a image that is a close up rather than an image that was taken from uh, more than uh, 5 feet in front of the camera. So we got this image right now, graphic boost, which is a rather harsh um, uh, way of playing with an image. And it's not quite so fancy. They have all these jaggies, which is what happens. This is what happens when you got images that go um, back and forth, scaled up and scaled down, and the image is just played with. That this is image noise that some of these other filters can either uh, strengthen, as you can see, or make them go away, as you're gonna see with this painting. Oh man, look at that! That's just awesome. I like that. Um, um, uh, some of these artistic illustration styles are just unique to their own. So I will take the time to um, I guess just do that one like I promised. So certainly the the program here might take less time if um, this is only um, a, a small image, or rather small image. Uh, I boosted the images up a little bit so it would be it would kind of fit cleanly in here while still being 100%. But it was maybe like 22 inches tall, or I mean 22 inches wide by 8.5 inches tall, whatever it was when I uh, opened it. I guess we have time to play around with another um, view of the image, but um, the, this filter, some of the filters in GIMP take a little bit of time, but I didn't increase the the uh, the size of the image all that much. So you could see it's 20 inches in width, whereas this one is more like 25 or something like that. Just so that there's 100% down at the bottom. Um, that right here, that um, uh, you see the difference. 20 by 25 inches in width. So I don't know if, oh, there we are. There we are. So I'm going to close this because I don't want to be messing around with something that other than what I want to be talking about. This is really interesting. You can uh, basically, oh, sorry, that's the underlying error layer. So put this at 50% and you can change it uh, based upon what you want. So I think I'm going to go with this just so that we can continue on playing around and going to use poster images to defuzz the pixels and whatnot, and seeing what kind of effect that we get from. Well, that's interesting. So I'm going to do that right now. This being at 100%, this layer right here, and this upcoming layer to be at 100%, we can certainly use this to kind of play around with how the image is visualized. So you can't really, I guess, tell much of a difference until you get up past 50%. But it's pretty cool. One of the other things is that Van Gogh filter. After you use the Van Gogh filter, you can strengthen or uh, make these lines more loud. So I'm going to choose this as a filter setting selection. And yay, okay, that didn't take long at all. That I select that filter, and then I go up to GMIC again, and I choose, wow, graphic boost. I mean, who knows what would look good versus not so good. So maybe Rhodeless would be a better filter to get rather than graphic boost. But who knows what's going to be the effect of one over the other until one explores and says, oh, I'd like to change this, or I'd like to change that, or like to have fun with this style or that style. So it looks like that I'm not going to have enough time to play around with uploading images to Superphoto or Paint or anything like that. But um, that tutorial or demonstration of things to play around with would certainly be upcoming a little bit later on in the next couple of days. Um, I might not want to choose this setting right now because this and Kuwahara or car paint. Although, man, I can't help myself. I want to be able to see what that looks like. Um, so I guess it would be uh, I would need to just kind of talk my way um, as this filter takes its course. Um, so and it's working. So yeah, I don't know. I personally I graduated from the Art Institute of Seattle in 1996, and it's been uh, a struggle for sure to try to find something that really moved me in the work world. Um, uh, I worked in uh, various odds and ends, but I'm only uh, um, happiest when I work with computers and imaging. Uh, I certainly have spent a lot of time just being able to play around with stuff, and so I what I hope for all of the people that is watching this video, that they have the time and the tenacity to do a lot of playing around with um, art themselves, or being able to play around with Google terms, being able to play around with just whatever your interest is, whatever, man, whatever your whatever you want to do. So actually, this might be somewhat hard. I want to be able to not seem like that is a whole, and that is something else. So I'll play around with that to be 65, and maybe that would be um, more of something that I would do like 30. I'm sorry, 30. Hello. So that I um, the uh, the the landscape that people have to do in order to play with this kind of stuff is very wide and significant. So certainly I'm need to end the video right now, but the people that I just, yeah, I mean, have fun playing. Sorry that I didn't get to um, these other programs down at the bottom, even though I did launch them. Hopefully to use in this video. Um, it's hard, I guess, to uh, uh, kind of come to a conclusion with this, um, uh, uh, how I uh, how I talk, or how my brain works, or whatever. But nevertheless, have yourself a good um, um, art related experience. And my name's Carl Bond, and I hope to see you again in the future. Bye bye.